Hi everyone. So today we're in a bit of a new location. My kiln is running and I don't like being in there when it's running. And it's a glaze along. I thought we would do a glaze along today and it's a fun one. If you watched my kiln opening from just a couple weeks ago, I posted this, or I took this mug out of the kiln and I asked you guys if you all wanted to see how I did that. So the answer was yes. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. It's really simple. It's really fun. It is very similar to my confetti mugs, except without drying the pieces and putting them on after you put a flux on. We're going to put a flux and just paint on the different colors to get a little bit of a different effect, I guess you could say. So yeah, let's get started and let's do Confetti 2.0. All right, so I mentioned in my kiln unload that both of these mugs were were just Spectrum. Not both of them, but the mug that I took out was Spectrum glazes. So if you want to do exactly like this one, you will need soft white, curry, sunrise, sangria, and morning glory. And the first step is to do 2 full coats of soft white everywhere, inside, outside, the whole thing. So we're going to do that. Now, if you've used Spectrum glazes before, then you'll know what I mean when I say they only need 2 coats, even though they say 2 to 3. You really only need 2 coats. But actually, I take that back. You just need 1 coat on the inside because we are going to be putting a lot of color on the inside. So you just need 1 coat on the inside. My apologies on that. But I will do 2 full coats on the outside. And also another tip with Spectrum glazes, you know what, I'm just going to put an extra little bit on the bottom just to make sure. Another tip with Spectrum glazes is if you're finding that they're looking patchy, go in a crosshatch pattern. So like if you're brushing your glazes on this way, the first coat, go this way for the second coat. And you won't have that patchy look. And yeah, you won't have a patchy look. I find that pearl white can go really patchy, as well as soft white. But if you do it in the crosshatch pattern, then you usually don't have that problem. My dogs are a little crazy today. I'm not entirely sure why, but they are. And I didn't mention this, but this mug is on Plainsman wheat. And if you haven't seen that, or if you're interested in that clay, I did do a little bit of a review on it. I can link that down in the description, but it is in my channel there. So if you're interested, go and check that out. And I also want to mention another tip. Handles run really fast, or they run the most on a mug. So you do want to be careful, especially if you have a mug that has like a dip. This one has like a little dip in here. You want to be careful with that because you don't want it to pool too much in there so that it pinholes. But yeah, just a tip. And we'll clean up the bottom when we get to that. And if you're worried about running, because soft white is a flexi glaze, Actually, what I'll do is no, if you're worried about running, because soft white is kind of a flexier glaze, then only put 2 coats down on the bottom. Don't put full 2 coats up here if you're worried about it running. You'll still get a similar effect, it just maybe won't be as dramatic, but you'll still get that, you'll still get the movement. It just, like I said, it just won't be maybe as dramatic as if you did 2 coats. And I'm not doing very thick coats, especially towards the top. On the bottom, I definitely did a little bit thicker, but I know that I'm not taking my color all the way to the bottom. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry and I'll bring you right back when it's dry. Our mug is dry, so we're gonna start with Sunrise. And all we're gonna do, so we're gonna start with the inside first. So we're not gonna go all the way to the bottom. So on the inside, we're just going to do random strokes. Kind of everywhere. And then we're going to make sure that there is enough glaze on it. So kind of like 2 coats. I know it's not super easy to see the inside, but you'll be able to see the outside. So that's basically the inside. Kind of just really random. So then we're going to do exactly the same on the outside. So just make sure that you've got enough. And if you don't feel like you've had enough, like if you don't feel like there was enough on your brush, then just go back and give it like a second coat. But this is all we're essentially doing. And you don't really want to go past like the middle of the cup, because you will run into too much movement, and that's a bit of a problem. So you want to watch. So like here, I put a little bit too much here and it was going to drip. I just want to kind of keep those drips in check. Even though I want the drippy effect, I want to keep the actual glaze drips in check. So like here's one. I don't really want it to do that. So, and you can just do dots, or you can, do whatever you want. Sorry, the angle in my kitchen, well, the angles anywhere I work aren't great. but this is the best I got at the moment, so. So that's it. So we're gonna let that dry a little bit. We'll come back and we'll put the next color on. All right, so the next color we're gonna do is Sangria. Actually, maybe we'll do Sangria next. Now, Sangria is a darker color. So I try not to, because I want to keep it very like light and springtimey looking. I'm not going to use a ton of Sangria, because sometimes the darker colors can kind of overpower the other colors. So I just try to keep that in mind. But you're going to do, and it's not perfectly dry, but it's dry enough. So same thing, you're just going to go in and you're going to just do the exact same thing. But like I said, I'm not going too crazy. So we'll just make sure we have enough. Okay, so yeah, like I said, very abstract-y. But you just want to make sure that you have enough coverage everywhere. And also remember that the soft white will it will lighten your colors. So also keep that in mind. If you're looking for a dark, abstract-y look, you may want to consider a different option for a flux because yeah. Anyway, but this is this glaze along. So if you're wanting this exact look. So we're gonna let that dry and then we'll come back for the next color. Curry is the next color. Now, curry is probably gonna be my most prominent color that I'll be using, especially on the outside. Curry is so subtle, especially when you put it over top of a flux. But I do know that it gives some really amazing colors, especially when you put it over some pinks. So yeah, anyway, exactly the same as everything else. We're going to do random strokes and kind of fill in the gaps. Now I don't want it, I could just do a full coat on top, but I don't want to do that. I want it to mix in with just the pearl white or the soft white, sorry. I want it to mix in with the sangria because I know that it does some really cool effects with sangria. And spoiler alert, another glaze along is coming with just curry and sangria. And I'll show you, it's like it's really fun. But yeah, so same thing. We're just going to go in, do some random strokes. And again, make sure that you go in there. All right, so there we go. And now we just have one final color and then we'll be done. Okay, so Morning Glory is the very last color that we're going to use. And if you've used Spectrum Morning Glory, you know, and if you've layered it or mixed it or anything like that, you know that it can definitely overpower the colors that it's around. So how I usually deal with that is I use a smaller brush, and I can link all of these brushes down below. They're the only mop brushes that I use. I enjoy them and they're super cheap. So yeah, anyway, I just go same thing, but I just do almost like dots. I don't do like swipes or anything. And I'm just kind of haphazard, especially on the inside. So it kind of looks like that, but I don't mind that the inside is going to have a lot of blue. Now on the outside, same thing. but I'm just going to be a little bit more conscious, I guess, on where I put it. So just kind of everywhere, but not everywhere at the same time, I guess you could say. I just want to kind of fill in the gaps, but I don't want to go overboard. Yeah. And like I mentioned before, on the handle, you want to be careful that there isn't so much glaze, because this is, I think Sarah Walton says it the best, it's like an express way for glaze. And she's 100% correct. This will just go down and go whew, right onto your shelf. So keep that in mind. But there we go. So that is Confetti Glazing 2.0, the first part. So now I'm gonna let this dry overnight, and we're gonna put it in the kiln to cone 6. So once it comes out, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, our Confetti 2.0 mugs are out of the kiln. They fired beautifully, and if I haven't already, I'll post my firing schedule right up there so that you can take a screenshot of it. But like I said, I've mentioned it before, every kiln is different, every atmosphere is different, so you may have to adjust it according to your kiln and how you know that it works. But yeah, look at these. Now, because I've shown these in a kiln unload before. Look at that handle. I've shown these in a kiln unload before, and the one that I showed before was a little bit more vibrant of colors, but I did use a full 2 coats of soft white on these ones. This one's a little bit brighter, but again, they did use 2 full coats. And like I mentioned while we were glazing, if you only did 2 full coats up to about here, and then you did your confetti down, you definitely would have a little bit more of a vibrant color. So soft, so pretty, such a fun springtime mug. So yeah, I think these turned out great. Like, look at this. Look at that handle in there. Wow, like all of that. So, so pretty. And the inside, look at that. So beautiful. Now, I also did mention that they can be runners. So I had mine on a cookie. So it did fire, it's not working perfectly, but it did fire just fine. It didn't actually go beyond the bottom. But again, keep that in mind. You may want to use a cookie for this, or if you have advancer shelves, you'd be fine. But I would just take a little bit of precaution because it definitely can be a runner. But yeah, I think these turned out great. It's definitely a different vibe than the original confetti mugs that I did. So I guess it depends. Do you want a more vibrant, in-your-face kind of speckle, or do you want a more abstract, flowy, soft type of version? Because that's what this is. And you can do it with tons of different combinations. So the sky's basically the limit, depending on what kind of a look you're going for. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. And otherwise, I hope you guys are having a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that when I post another video like this, you don't miss out. Have a good day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.